here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's March 16th here in Seoul. I'm Shin, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Ji-young.
Good morning, you.
And Cheska Dainha.
Happy Thursday, everyone.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, let's start with the news feed. Every day, we make a news feed that looks at which hashtags and news items have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. The first hashtag is holidays. The Ministry of Personnel Management on Wednesday has decided to add Buddha's birthday and Christmas to its alternative holiday system from this year. Alternative holidays give people an extra day off when a holiday falls on a weekend. The second hashtag is face masks. South Korea will no longer require people to wear face masks on public transport like inside buses or trains from Monday. Officials also lifted mask mandates in pharmacies located in big marts or bus stations that are relatively spacious. Now, the third hashtag is transgender. The Seoul Western District Court on Tuesday has decided to acknowledge a trans female as a woman, even though she didn't go through affirmation surgery. The court said an individual should be able to affirm his or her own gender identity without having to go through surgery. It added their perception of themselves should come ahead of what society or biology defines them to be. Now let's look into the last hashtag in more detail, transgender. There are other countries like Korea that have recently decided to acknowledge trans male and females as their identified gender without sex change surgery. This includes Finland. Finland amended its law so that anyone aged 18 and up who declare themselves as a certain gender can such be acknowledged legally. And last year, Scotland also amended its gender recognition bill so that individuals aged 16 and older could legally apply to change the gender listed on their birth certificate. But in January, the UK government blocked this bill from receiving loyal assent, so the bill is still up for possible change. Now, I would like to ask our panelists what they think about this particular issue, starting with Cheska. Should more countries allow trans people to choose which gender to be identified legally without surgery?
I mean, when I first heard the news, I heard it was very shocking and also could cause a lot of controversies among people. So I did a bit of research, and already there's much discussion on marriage, bathroom access, how are we going to identify people coming in, right?
Definitely.
And also military services. So it seems like there is a much need for conversations, as this is a very, very sensitive issue for all parties involved, in terms of respect. So I do hope that we have an open discussion, very detailed planning, and a careful transition so that all parties involved don't caught into the disastrous calamities. Yeah.
All right. And what about you, Seon? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think there's always issues revolving around the surgical process, definitely. Because I think, obviously you can define your own gender however you feel inside. But in the eyes of the law, as you mentioned, in the eyes of society, it often brings different issues onto the table. For example, Isla Bryson was found guilty of 2 counts of rape at the High Court in Glasgow in January 2023. The crimes were committed in 2016 and 2019, while Bryson was known as a man called Adam Graham. Bryson was moved from Corton Vale Women's Prison to male prison estate after a public outcry in the United Kingdom. And this has brought a big issue to the country, because there has been other cases of criminal offenders who actually change their gender and identify as a woman.
Right.
So in a sense, sort of get the less sort of intense penitentiary treatment. So I think that also brings us the concern whether we could rightfully call these people transgender, and whether this might have a larger effect on the actual transgender community as a whole as well.
All right, so we'll definitely have to continue discussions on this relatively contentious issue. All right, that was our news feed for this Thursday, and now let's head into our main discussion for today. Take a look at the screen to find out what we'll discuss. South Korea has the world's lowest fertility rate. Statistics Korea reported last week that the average number of children per woman fell to 0.78 last year. That broke the record low from a year earlier. It's nothing new, though. From 2015, the country has seen a drop in birth rates. In 2020, the country for the first time saw more deaths than births. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. Why are a growing number of young people refraining from having children? 2.
What are some ways the government is trying to boost the birth rate? 3. How are other countries dealing with a low birth rate?
So South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world, and today on NewsGen, we aim to find out why so many young people are afraid to or are reluctant to have a child here. So let's first find out what our panelists think about this. Do you guys want to have kids one day?
I mean, for me, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've actually have a target age as well, probably around 35, so that I can actually enjoy my time with my child or children before I get too old. But I think this, you know, the reason why I put it off till 35 or later or earlier, hopefully, is because of the issue of financial freedom. You know, a lot of the times, you know, I barely can take care of myself with the income I earn. And if I have, you know, a couple more mouths to feed, it's going to be definitely a lot of work and, you know, a lot of stress as well. And then if I can afford to have children, I think personally going through adoption process is actually a great idea as well. I mean, we do have a lot of developing countries around us, and even though Korea might have decreasing population, there are countries with unbearable amounts of increasing population. And you know, having a mixed culture and being able to nurture some children in need might be a fantastic opportunity for the humanity itself. You know, even when you might not or might want to have children regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do want to have kids one day, but not at the moment.
Can't at the moment.
Can't at the moment.
That's
All
a good
right.
one, yeah.
And what about you, Cheska?
I mean, that's a very specific target, and I look forward to seeing Papa Xiong
Hopefully.
in the future, hopefully.
In the future.
I am of the opinion that although I love kids, I probably would like to have a romantic life with just my partner. I'm also very open to adoption, should my partner want to be parents. But I think I represent the millennials in our generation that I don't know if our society is completely safe and sustainable to bring in someone ideally loved. just like
Right.
it.
And I think I myself have pushed back when I want to have kids too. It
Why is
used to
that?
be like 25 years old.
Really? That's so
now
young.
it's like 35 as well. And it's because taking care of myself is really hard enough. But as we could
You need to be adopted yourself.
We're very open to
I'm
adoption.
still a
both of us.
child. But anywho, as we could see from our discussion just now, a lot of youngsters think like we do. So Xiang, tell us just how low the birth rate here is in Korea compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as we heard in the introduction, Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world, down at 0.78 child per woman as of 2022, which is last year. Our capital city, Seoul, has the lowest birth rate in the country as well, at 0.59, which is alarming as the city is the most populated region in the country. Now, let's have a look at the details of the exact figures provided by Statistics Korea. For clarification, total fertility rate published by most credible research organizations are calculated by the average number of births a woman is expected to have in her lifetime. Now, looking at the chart, just a decade ago in 2012, South Korea had a respectable birth rate of 1.3 children, which is stable until 2015, keeping above 1 child per female barrier. However, from 2018, it began to fall below zero, from starting at 0.98 and constantly decreasing ever since.
Right.
Now, compared to the rest of the world, these figures become more alarming. In comparing 38 member states of the OECD, South Korea ranks at the bottom, almost at half of the OECD average of 1.59. Israel ranked at the highest at almost 3 children per woman, followed by Mexico at above 2 children as well, whilst most economically developed countries like France, USA, Germany, Japan, Italy and Slovenia came at above 1 child per female as well.
I see. So then, Cheska, why do you think the younger generation refrains from having kids? What's the biggest reason?
And this is always such a conundrum because the impact is, as Xiong said, is societal and global. However, the matter itself is very, very personal and private to each and every family. So if we take a look at the screen, here's a survey published by the Chungang about why South Koreans are very hesitant to expand their families. Now, it's very interesting to note how the priorities differ based on gender. So for women, the most important issues were gender role equality, childcare costs, and parenting responsibilities.
Right.
So more in terms of like how much support can I get from my partner, right? But for men, it was mostly about finance, as in how much can I financially support and provide for the family, as Xiang said,
Right.
because of highly expensive private education, housing prices, and etc. And there were more from the survey, such as no guarantee of children's happiness, as I mentioned, and of course the trajectory in terms of career. And there's a term attached to this called the price effect. And if the price of reaching a certain career or my life increases, the desire to create the family completely plummets.
Definitely. I love that term, price effect. I think this is why a lot of youngsters, including myself,
Yes.
are so hesitant to start making a family so young. But
Exactly.
Xiao, why is the government trying to boost the birth rate, and why do we need a higher birth rate in terms of society?
Yeah, I mean, for example, last year in 2022, I think South Korea had 123,800 more deaths than new births, which puts the country at risk of losing its population below the level of sustainable economic function. So not only this, but a sustainable birth rate is also of paramount importance in addressing demographic issues such as aging population, declining workforce, and also increasing healthcare costs as we see more aging population. So although there are concerns about overpopulation straining the planet's resources and damaging the environment as well, higher birth rate is essential for general economic function of any country, and to fund social welfare programs, especially in an aging society like ours.
Definitely, and that's why officials have been rolling out many welfare policies to promote higher birth rates. Notwithstanding, we're still seeing the lowest birth rate in the world. So what do you think about the current welfare policies out there? How should it be improved so that it can encourage younger people who really want to have kids to actually have them?
So in terms of not going into details about the policies itself, I truly believe in the good faith of the government. However, I think the problem runs a lot broader and a lot deeper than just financial support. I mean, finance is very critical, but I think a lot of Koreans do not believe that our society currently at the moment is safe, and we're talking about both physically and mentally.
Right.
I mean, in one of the interviews where both parents work, they actually said, my life in terms of how I work and how I live is already so strenuous, I cannot put on more burden and responsibility of having children into my life. And as we know, having a child is both a blessing and a burden.
Definitely, it's both a blessing and a burden.
yes.
What about you, Xiong?
I mean, let me tell you more about the specifics of policies we have in Korea. Korea actually has quite decent policies, contrary to, I guess, common beliefs. I guess the locals do hear more about the benefits we have to encourage childbirth. So according to 2022 local government childbirth support policy casebook by the Ministry of Health and Welfare, childbirth support policy budget was increased from about $700 million in 2021 to about $1.5 billion last year. So up from about 27% of increase. So I mean, part of these packages include things like welcome child packages,
Right.
If you translate it directly, which is about $2,000 per child that's being born new, as well as parent compensation, which lasts for a maximum of 2 years, 24 months. And for the first entire year of your childbirth, you get around $600 per month as free of just as cash support from the government. And for the first year of childbirth, when your child turns 1, I guess, you get about $300 for the remaining 12 months. Now, child care centers provided by the government also is going to increase the time that you can, put your child into the system. So the childcare services will be increased from 3 hours a day to 4 hours a day,
Right.
which is still a huge increase. Remembering the fact that it's free of charge, as well as parental leave increased to maximum
Right.
of a year and a half
which is
as
very
well.
important, yeah.
So I'm guessing that we have a lot of different welfare policies that are ideal and they're really good, but I think they don't capture what young generation are actually talking about. It's what happens to the competitive education environment, what happens to the horribly increasing living costs. How can we have a child
exactly.
here? Now, why don't we expand our talks to include a global millennial and find out how it's like abroad? We're now going to be speaking with Bart van Gnuten. We've actually had him on our show back in one of our earlier episodes. Bart's a content creator from the Netherlands who's married to a Korean woman. So he has lots to say on why he's still contemplating whether to have kids or not here in Korea. So welcome back, Bart.
Good morning.
Good
Thanks
morning,
for having me
Bart.
again.
Good morning.
All right, Bart, let's first compare birth rates between Korea and the Netherlands. Does your country have low birth rates, and how has the government been trying to tackle this issue?
Yes, well, the Netherlands has the lowest birth rate ever, so it's dropped to 1.6. But, you know, honestly, compared to South Korea, we shouldn't complain too much.
It's not as bad as
Yeah, but it's the lowest ever in the last 20 years. So why that is, it's a bit unclear. Experts say there are various reasons for this. One is that we just came out of an economic crisis, so people are more financially unstable, and therefore they try to postpone getting children. But I personally think that people have become more individualistic. They try to focus first on themselves, building up a good career, maybe travel around the world. Another explanation is also that women are higher educated these days.
Right.
More women go to university, more women try to finish their studies and then focus on their career. And these days in the Netherlands, even more women go to university than men. So that's part of the explanation. But there used to be this atmosphere in the Netherlands that, you know, you find a girl, you marry, you buy a house, and then you get children. And that was self-evident. But these days, it has become an option for people to get a child. And that is very much respected so. So
Right.
the expectations have become lower. But you also asked me about the policy in the Netherlands. I did some research, and surprisingly, there are not many new policies from the government to increase the fertility rate. So we still have our welfare system, our welfare benefits like parental leave, childcare, child benefits, tax benefits, and they're all quite good. But yeah, nothing new to improve the fertility rate.
I see. And Xiao, do you have any questions for Bart?
Yes, Bart, I guess as you mentioned, you're now married to a Korean lady. Are you two planning on having kids in Korea? What policy do you believe can be the most effective to encourage higher birth rates in the country?
Yes. We definitely want to have children. One, maybe two. I think we should experiment with one first and then see if we are ready for a second.
Daughters.
Yes, but yeah, the policy question, that's actually super difficult. I think it's a very rational decision for families to decide on whether they want to have a child or not. No matter which policy is in place, you can't really force that on people, right?
Exactly.
So if I have to come up with one policy, I think for us it would be important that there is maternity leave, paid maternity leave with job security. Because I was talking actually to my wife this morning about it. Work-life balance is the most important for us. So whenever we get a child, we don't suddenly want to give up our careers and focus 100% on our children. Instead, we want a healthy balance between, like I said, work-life. Yeah,
of course.
All right. And Cheska?
And you brought up a really good point. As you said, it is a societal issue, but it's also very personal and private to each family, right? So in your experience, what do you think is the most ideal form of society for you to reasonably start thinking about having children?
This is definitely the most difficult question for us because we're an international couple, right? We have, on the one hand, we have the Netherlands, and on the other hand, we have Korea. Two completely different societies. We already came to the decision that we want to raise our child until the age of 4 or 5 in Korea, because until that age, we don't think it really matters where it is. So it could be the Netherlands, could be Korea, but yeah, we live in Korea now, so Korea is fine. But after that, we want our children to be raised in a not so competitive society. We want the emphasis not to be on education alone, and also we want our surroundings not to give us the feeling that we should focus on education a lot. And regarding that point, we lean slightly more to the Netherlands, where emphasis is more on letting the child be a child. And on the long run, the children or the parents, they actually want to support the children do whatever they want to do, and not so much what the parent wants their child to become. In my personal opinion, that's a healthier society. And we feel that these days in Korea, we feel that it's still quite competitive, and emphasis is a lot on education, and education translates in more cost. It's more expensive to send your children to a lot of after-school studies, hak ones, things like that. So
Yes, I think that's what
Yeah.
we need in Korea as well, to actually, be able to nurture children in the common sense that children should be children.
Right, right.
All right, thank you so much, Bart. I think you made a very fascinating point throughout the whole interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bart.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and as a daily morning program in an international broadcast channel, we tried to include millennials and Gen Z, our viewers, into our talk. So we asked our viewers whether they were thinking of having kids, why or why not. So take a look at the screen. Amol Agrawal said, I do want to have kids so as to continue my lineage and witness that the stage of life where one gets the opportunity to nurture and observe a human from the very beginning. Potato said, no, I would rather prioritize my career and personal interests over having a family. If I'm feeling lonely, I'd probably just get a pet. Benny said, I do want to have kids in the future because I want to see my mom and dad have new grandkids. Same with my cousins. Now, here's what our viewers had to say. Xiong, any point that fascinated you?
Yeah, I mean, exactly a few points to mention. They're all fascinating points. We all have different opinions.
Right.
Obviously, I think the biggest reason why you want to have your biological child would be to, continue your lineage, continue your bloodline. And that's why, childbirth was a thing from the beginning. You want to continue your line of family. You want to keep going your legacy going.
Right, and I think our global viewers are choosing not to have kids based on their personal choice, but I find, as Bart mentioned as well, it's the society here in Korea.
Yeah.
It's the hyper-competitive
competition,
culture
definitely.
that leads on to education that makes a lot of youngsters refrain from having kids.
Yes.
All right, every day we do upload questions related to our discussion topic for our viewers to answer. If you want to participate, please search ArirangNews on YouTube. Look into our community tab. The link is right below. Now, let's end our discussion with what we hope for. As the next generation is going to lead the way, that's us. How do we hope to tackle lack of low birth rate issues here in Korea and in many parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, because child rate, birth fertility rate is important to actually continue the legacy of human beings in a nutshell. And as Cheska actually mentioned earlier, before our rehearsal, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
There's got to be a common action. We must have the right environment, not just in South Korea, but in the world as well, for children to be actually nurtured and brought up as responsible adults. I think the high competitiveness of South Korean society is what drove Korea to this economic level at the moment.
Right.
But I think, we should be able to calm down and actually, give the children an opportunity to have a nice childhood, to have, grow up as responsible adults who can actually know the actual values of living a happy life.
Definitely. Now let's call it a day for a discussion on low birth rates here in Korea. We'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you the topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim
My
Xiao
pleasure, yeah.
and Cheska Dainhan.
The pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.